Okay, so welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining me again on our fourth webinar of our four-part series on the accounting setup in Icon CMO. If you have any questions, please use the chat box and I will answer them as we go. Did anyone have any questions right away about any of the previous webinars that we've done? In our first webinar, we talked about the beginning steps to getting the accounting set up. We talked about the chart of accounts and tags. And in webinar number 2, we talked about maintaining your funds and setting up funds. And we talked about budgets. We also, in webinar 3, talked a little bit about accrual-based versus cash-based accounting, as well as funds, accounting funds versus donation funds. We talked about the link from donations to accounting, setting up vendors, and a little bit about setting up customers. And in today's webinar, we're going to be talking about beginning balances, which is kind of your final piece to getting numbers into the system so that we can have an actual balance sheet and some starting numbers. And we're going to talk about linking to the bank import feature, and there's going to be a little sneak peek into something new coming at the end of this webinar. So for the beginning balances, in order to even use the beginning balances screen, you will want to make sure that the fund maintenance, you've set up your funds already, and that your chart of accounts has been set up, at least as far as assets and liabilities go. It's not so important to have the revenue and expenses done, but it is important to have the assets and liabilities done in order to utilize this beginning balance screen. So under the General Ledger tab, Beginning Balances, we're going to pull up that screen. So along the left-hand side, first of all, it tells us what the beginning balance month that we're starting with is. So I had originally set that under the information screen. And I've got December 30th of 23. So my system's saying, okay, your beginning balance is in the month of December 2023. And then beneath that are the different asset and liability accounts that we're going to want to set balances for. It automatically puts me on the bank account screen. So clicking that button doesn't do anything for me because I'm already there, but I can click into the others. So on the bank account screen at the top, it says select a bank account. And so I've got everything here that I've got set up under my assets in my chart of accounts. And when I'm going to put numbers in, I want to take my actual bank balances. So if I were truly starting this as of January 1 of 2024, I wouldn't be able to put my balances probably until the first week of January because that's probably when I'm getting my bank statement from the bank. So when I get that statement, I will come in here and say, okay, the balance on my bank statement, my December 30th bank statement, I'm just going to make up some numbers here. So let's just say it was $15,431.29. So that was my balance on that bank statement. And then I'm going to go in and say, okay, so as of January 1, or rather December 31st, so I got that bank statement. As of that bank statement, I happen to have some cash that I had in my safe, let's say $200 worth. And I want to add that in here because I don't want to put it, I haven't brought it to the bank yet, right? And so I can't, it's not on my bank statement, but I also don't want to put it into my 2024 information because it was revenue that I received in 2023. So it's an unreconciled deposit, something that hasn't added to this bank balance yet, but it is revenue from a previous year, or if you're starting mid-year, a previous month. You just don't want to skew your current month or your current year's revenue. So I'm putting that in, and the reason I'm putting it in here is so that when it actually does hit my bank, then I can reconcile it and my bank statement will reconcile to my system. So same thing with the checks. If I've got some outstanding checks that I wrote. So I've got check number 123, that was a $25 check that somebody hasn't cashed. And I've got check number 142 that was, $175.50 will make them kind of interesting. Add that. And I've also got check number 181 that was a $57 check, and that hasn't been cashed. So again, I wrote these out in the previous year, so I don't want them to affect my current year's expenses. So they don't belong in 2024, they belong in 2023. But because the person, or people rather, have not cashed these checks, I want to be able to mark them off against my bank statement when they do hit my bank account. So I'm going to put that information in there and I'm going to close. The nice thing about this window, because there's a lot of different buttons and a lot of different pieces of information to put in there, the nice thing about this window is that I can close out of it, and I can close out of the whole system and refresh and come back in another day. And all of that information is still going to be there in that beginning balances screen. So it's kind of a working window. Nothing is posted to the accounting yet. I won't be able to pull a balance sheet of any kind until we actually hit this post button. So it's a working, get those numbers in, and once the entire screen, all buttons and everything are done, then we will go ahead and do the posting. So still on this general checking account. So these were my deposits that are going to be going into that account. And these are my checks that I wrote out from that account that haven't cleared. And then what the system does is it calculates for me this unreconciled bank balance. So it takes the balance that was on that statement, it adds in the 200, and it takes out the 257.50 and says, well, this is what you're, actually going to have left. And so of this amount, um, what funds own that money? So by default, it kind of puts everything under the general fund. But if I take that out, you can see down here now, I have zeros for all my funds, but it tells me, well, this is how much you have left to distribute. And I won't be able to post my balances unless I have everything distributed out here. So we'll say, okay, well, in my general checking account, I actually have, let's say, 2100, it belongs to my missions fund, and I have 850 here, and I've got 3400 here. So again, you can see my amounts to distribute, it's going down. um, just kind of putting some numbers in here. And then my general fund is everything that's left, so 26, 73, 79, and then I have nothing left to distribute. So you should know the balances of how much you have in each one of those funds, which is why I'm putting those dollars out here, and I kind of left the general fund for last, because all of these specific funds each have a balance, and then I knew that whatever was left belonged into my general fund. But every penny in that bank, and of course what's going out and coming in, all of that must be accounted for by a fund. So you have to have every penny in that bank account distributed out. So same thing if I were to go to my next bank account. So my Wells Fargo savings account. Let's just say I have $5,000 in that account. And for this one, I'm just going to say I don't have any unreconciled right now. So I just have a flat $5,000. Um, and if I have some of those funds, like let's just say my women's ministry, if I go back to my general checking account. I've got a women's ministry that's got $1,800. But let's just say they have, you know, an additional $1,000, but it's in the savings account. Um, oh, my dollar amount didn't save. I don't know what I did there, but let's try that again. 5,000, save. Okay, there we go. And then if I take that out here, and again, I'm going to say I have another $1,000 in my women's ministry here, and then I have $4,000 left. So again, all of these funds can have additional money. They can be spread across more than one account. You don't have to have more than one bank account because you've got this fund accounting system that's going to separate all those funds for you. But if you do have more than one bank account, each bank account can hold a part of one fund, or one fund can be dispersed amongst multiple bank accounts. That is a possibility. So I'm just going to go ahead and put those numbers in. Okay, so everything's good here. Um, I can go down if I have any accounts receivable. So this is again, if you're accrual-based accounting. If you're not, you'll just skip this area. But if you are accrual-based accounting, you'll come in here and say, oh, well, this customer still owes me a balance of $50, and that $50 will be going to, whichever fund that goes to. Okay. And if you have fixed assets that you're tracking, so I've got a couple of things here. I've got vehicles, I've got office equipment, I've got buildings. So you can come in here and put in the amounts for those. And as you can see, this screen is a little different. So you put in the initial value for that fixed asset. So what did we buy it for? Not what is it currently valued at. And then you put in the amount that it has appreciated or depreciated, and then that's going to give you your current fixed asset value. So I'm just going to make up some numbers again, and we'll say that it was $100,000. Is that enough zeros? Nope, that is. And I have a building fund. Again, so your fixed assets even have to be tracked by a fund. We did talk about, or I believe we talked about, the fact that some people will put those fixed assets in their own fund separate of everything else. Some people will put them in like the building fund, for example. Some people will put them in the general fund. So it is up to you to decide where those should go, but they must be tracked by a fund. So there's my $100,000 original purchase. And then if we say, okay, well, this has depreciated or appreciated, so you can see enter a negative value for depreciation. I'll just do depreciated by, we'll just say $10,000. And then I happen to have some contra accounts here for depreciation. So I will go ahead and set that up. And then there it shows me my current fixed asset value is 90,000. Okay, so you would go through and do that with all of the different fixed assets that you have. There is a spot for other assets. I didn't set any up in my chart of accounts, so I don't have any here. Accounts payable. So again, if you're accrual-based accounting, you're going to put in which vendor you still owe money to and how much you owe and what fund you owe that from. Okay. And we've got credit cards here. So if I've got a balance existing, let's say on my Discovery card, I would want to go ahead and put that in. So balance on credit card statement, we'll say 510. And again, if there's any payments that haven't hit that current statement yet, you add that in. So just like the checks and the deposits of our regular bank account, if you have any payments that haven't cleared on that particular statement, you're going to want to put that in. Same thing with there. If there's any charges that aren't on this statement, which has this balance on this date, you'll go ahead and put those in. A good scenario for this, because sometimes credit cards well, oftentimes I should say credit cards don't fall on a regular, like bank statements are usually the end of the month. Not always, but usually. And credit cards are sometimes, mid-month. So if my credit card statement, my bank statement was on December 31st, but if my credit card statement was on December 12th, then I would be putting in this $510 from December 12th. And anything that happened in December I would want to put here because I don't want it to affect my 2024 or my January information, but I want to have those things reflected in here so that I can reconcile them on the next statement, which will then be January 12th, right? So I would put in those in these spots. And once again, we're putting in those dollar values to distribute amongst the different funds. Okay. Liabilities. So there's a few in here like payroll, withholding, and taxes that I've got set up. So if I owe money still, FICA dollars, I'd have to go ahead and put that in, and then which fund carries that. Another one is um, notes payable. So this is another kind of liability, but it kind of breaks it out here. So notes payable, I have one set up for my mortgage. So I would want to come in here and set up whatever my balance is. So my original purchase price was 100,000. Let's just say I still owe 50,000. And then that way I can hit that liability and my bank account, or I'm sorry, not my bank account, my um, balance statement is going to reflect accurately not only what I have, but also what I owe. So I'm going to go ahead with all of these numbers that I've kind of punched in here, and I'm going to post those. I do want to put this in the building fund, however, because that's where my asset I put in. Oh, that moved on me. There we go. I put the building, the 100,000 in that building fund as well. So I would also want my mortgage to be in that same fund. So I'm going to go ahead and post this just so we can see. Well, and actually I'll do before I post that, I'm just going to show you. So if I tried to go to the GL report screen and if I tried to run my um, statement of financial position, which is your balance sheet, and I were to run it as of 12/31, all funds, and I show the report. Oh, I must have already posted something to this account. I didn't realize I did. Well then, give me one moment and I'm going to wipe that out real quick for us so that I can actually show you what I wanted to show you. Let's see. And before I do that, I want to create a backup. Okay. Okay, let me refresh that one more time. Yeah, I was worried that that was going to take my numbers out of here. Okay, let me go through and just punch some new numbers in. So, some checks, we'll say a $25 check, and I'll do a $50 check, and I'm going to do $47.99 and $121.50. Okay, so I got a handful of checks. Let me disperse some of this money. What do we have left? 2785.51. Okay, so I put some numbers in here. Let's go ahead and I just want to show you with the multiple bank accounts what that's going to look like. I'm going to do 3,000 in my general, and I'm just going to do 2,000 in my memorial. Accounts receivable, I'll put one in here just so we can see what that looks like. Trying to get you a couple in for each of these so you kind of have an idea of what these are going to look like on that statement of financial position. Okay, and my mortgage, 50,000. Okay, and I wanted to put that in my building fund. Okay, so I think I got pretty much everything I wanted to put in there. And okay, so before I post it, let's go to look at those GL reports now. And one more time, the statement of financial position, all funds, 12/31/23, show that report. There we go. So it's a big nothing because I have nothing posted yet. If I go ahead and post that beginning balance, so I want to hide this side menu, sorry. I'm going to post or clear, so I can either clear those beginning balances out, which if you've already, so if you come in and you put these beginning balances in one day, and then you come in a week later and you're like, oh, these are all wrong, you can come in and clear them out. Even if you've already posted them, you can clear them out. If you have already started reconciling transactions, so if say you came in a month later and you already reconciled your first bank statement and then you thought you would clear out your um, beginning balances, that's going to be a lot more difficult. You have to go through and completely remove and undo all of your reconciling in order to clear those out. So that is why we give that extra day, that instead of putting the beginning balances on the 12/31 date, I put it on the 12/30 date so that I had an extra day in there that I can make adjusting entries if there are any mistakes. Since I obviously don't have anything posted anymore because I did a wipeout on my side, so that's something on the back end that a user wouldn't usually be able to do. Um, Now that I have an empty database and I've just put in those beginning balances, I'm going to go ahead and say post. So I've got my message down here that says my balances have been successfully entered. Wonderful. Now, if I go ahead and print that report, so same report, jail reports, we're looking for a statement of financial position. These are all alphabetical, so I just went down to the S's. This one's nice because it does say balance sheet in parentheses, so it gives you that for-profit term to kind of compare it with. And I'm going to go ahead and click show report, and let's zoom in on that. A little too far. There we go. So here's my different accounts. So you can see that building and my depreciation. So to give me my total building. And if I go down to my liabilities here, I've got my mortgage. And I know I put both of those into my building fund. So I should be able to see that my building fund nets out at 40,000 because I have a $90,000 building, but I still owe 50,000 on it. And your assets minus your liabilities are what gives you your net asset. And your net asset is also what is your fund balance, your total fund balance. So that is the beginning balances, and that's how you kind of get started in your system. When you look on your register, so like if I go to my GL register, or I could go into my um, bank checkbook register, but anytime I go into the GL register, you're going to see that all of those beginning balance codes are labeled with the BBAL. Okay. And these transactions are not ones that can be easily like deleted and things like that, because they are kind of a whole screen situation. Okay, so I'm going to close out of that. And the next thing I wanted to show is the linking to the bank account. I'm not sure if I'm logged into the right server, so I'm just going to grab a new screen here just to make sure that we are, because I have to be on a specific server for this test database that I have set up. So when I go to banking and I go into enter transactions, in this screen, now that I have posted my beginning balances, I see my totals for my different bank accounts. And again, here's that checkbook register I was talking about, checkbook and credit card register for that matter, that gives you that information as well. So if I follow like my general checking right here, if I follow that all the way over here to the bank import, I have the ability right here to link my account. When I click on this, this is going to bring me out to Plaid. Plaid is a large and mostly commonly used. If you ever see the bank linking, it's usually Plaid is the financial institution that's doing that. So when you go out to Plaid, you're going to search for your different bank. So let's just say it's a Wells Fargo one. And ooh, I don't want to do that one. I wanted an easier one for you. I know PNC does it. Here we go. So depending on your bank, there's a different ways that you log in or enter the information to be able to link in. As you saw with that Wells Fargo one, I actually have to go to an external page to log in. I don't know if my test credentials, because this is all fake information, are going to um, work here, but I know that on this one, if I'm stay in this screen, that those are going to work. So I'll put in my test credentials and it gives me this information here where it shows me my different bank accounts that I have at that financial institution. So I said I have a PNC bank. So it's giving me my different PNC bank transactions or accounts, I should say. So we've got all kinds of different ones here just because Plaid, this is the Plaid sandbox, and they give you every kind of account you can link with. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick the Plaid checking account because that's what mine is a checking account. Um, Takes just a moment to connect. Success. So now what it's going to do is it's going to bring in those transactions from my bank. So I have the ability to set whatever date range that I want, and it can even be way past, and it will bring in those transactions for me, and it gives me the date of the transactions. So I only have some that go back from 10/10 up to 11/26 within this date range that I've provided. The system, if I have transactions in here, it will automatically match these. Otherwise, I can match these to transactions I've created, or I can create transactions off of this screen. I won't get too much into that. That's more on the training side. And if you want more information or more training for that, you can certainly sign up or give us a call and we can walk you through that. But I just wanted to show you how you would go about linking that account. I could then go ahead and link my savings account. So if I click savings and then I click link account, it tells me, because I'm already linked to that PNC, like, do you want to pick this account? Or I say, no, it's not listed. I'm going to pick a different one. So then I can go in and pick a different financial institution or the same one in a different account. I'm just going to leave this one for now. But that's how you would set those up. Okay. Any questions so far on what I've showed you with the beginning balances and um, the linking with the bank accounts here? Okay, so one of the questions was just about the linking of the bank accounts. So the question is, would checks paid appear also? So when I'm linking with my bank account, this is everything that has cleared my bank. So any transaction that's going to appear on my bank statement is coming in from this link right here. So if I have written a check, but somebody has not yet cashed it, then it will not show up here because the bank doesn't know that I've written the check until that person actually, deposits it into their own account. So that would not show up here. However, anything that does, so like it looks like McDonald's, I wrote a check, or maybe it was an electronic funds transfer. Yep, looks like it was EFT. So I um, went to McDonald's and spent $12. That hit my bank account here. So then from here, like I said, I can click suggest match, and I can see right away because I haven't entered any transactions in my system yet. So there are no transactions. So it says, okay, well, do you want to create one? I don't have that vendor yet. Otherwise, if I did, it would pre-populate for me. Um, but I can go ahead and add. Oh, my cat box. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and add that one right now. So I've got that in here, and then I can say, okay, this is my general fund, and I probably have an expense called meal. Okay, yep. So I'm going to go ahead and post that check. So now that's matched. And then what this does, the nice thing about this is going to help me with my reconciliation. It's going to automatically mark this transaction. Yep, it's reconciled because you just created that check. Now, if I had already had one entered into the system and I picked, which I don't, this is the only transaction I've entered because you just saw I just posted those beginning balances. But if I had things entered, it would give me some options to match. Or if it said, hey, I already found something 289.40 for Spark Fund. So let's say I did write a check in my system. I wrote this check out to Spark Fund, let's say a month ago, and they've just now cashed it. So it's now hitting my bank. Well, my system already has this information in there because I have written the check from the system, but now the bank also has it. So when I click suggest match, it should, well, I should even have to hit suggest match because if I have the right information, it should automatically match it for me, which is even nicer. Um, and the other question is that how you get the banking credentials to log in. So those are going to be your bank credentials. So if you log in online to get into your bank, that is the credentials that they are looking for when you go in to link those accounts. So that username and password to get logged into your bank is going to be the same username and password that you're putting here in Plaid, and then Plaid connects to your bank that way. And it's a very secure, very well known financial institution. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so the last thing I wanted to show you was I was going to give you all a special sneak peek of our new payroll module. So we have a brand new payroll module. So we have our old payroll that's here, oops, under payroll. And we've got that right here, and that's okay. But we have been working hard to revamp this payroll module. So we have a brand new payroll module that's going to be coming out next week. And since you all have joined me on this little webinar journey, I thought you could be the first to get the brand new sneak peek. So let's bring that on over here. I've got another testing set up for this. So payroll, this is all of the new payroll. You can see I've got the legacy payroll, that's the old stuff down here. But so the new payroll is really cool. It can go into the payroll setup, and I've got all of my employees here. If I want to add another employee, I'll just put the name of, we're going to call this person best employee, and I decide, or I mark whether they're clergy or not. I can put in all this extra information. I don't have to. Um, I do obviously have to fill out the filing status here, and I'm just going to save that. And then the nice thing is it's going to prompt me. I probably should have refreshed this before I opened this. Give me one more moment. Just going to do a little refresh and pull this new screen over, and let's get rid of that old one. Okay, so again, payroll setup. We'll do best employee again. And save. Of course, it doesn't want to work now that I have promised you this lovely sneak peek. Let me try one more database here. I don't know why I'm struggling so much. Okay, completely different setup here. Maybe it just doesn't like my name. Well, what I was hoping to show you was the nice little prompts that you get, but apparently my developers are probably working on this while we speak. So I'm conflicting with what they're doing, so it's not coming through. But when this does save, you get a nice little prompt as to what the next step is. I can go through it manually. I was just hoping to get that pulled up here. Let me go back to this one. Yep. I pulled the same one up here again. One more time. Payroll setup. Okay, since I can't show you specifically, there's what I want. Since I can't show you specifically the prompts, I will just go through manually. So I've got Jonathan already set up. I can determine what his pay frequency is. I can click on his compensation, and I can add in new compensation types. So if they have different, and this would be like if you're currently using our or have currently seen our, sorry, you wouldn't be using it because you're not in accounting yet, but if you've currently seen our payroll, we had rate cards set up before, this would be equivalent to that. But you set up their rate, you state whether it's an income, a reimbursement, or a box 14 reimbursement. Are they salary? Are they hourly? Is this a one-time payment? You can see if they're hourly, I can put in default hours, what their rate is per hour. If they are a salaried employee, I can either put in the annual amount and it'll calculate the per pay period, or I can put in the per pay period amount and it'll calculate the annual. And then you decide for each pay type what fund tracks that or pays that, and then also what expense account is going to track that. And then, okay, here's the little prompts that I was looking for before. Go to employees and then go to benefits. Let's see if it works now. Go to benefits. Okay, yeah. So I can move on to the next one. And I've already set up a couple of benefits, but there is a benefits type where I can put in all of the benefits that any of my employees might use, but I would just mark, okay, well, this particular employee has health insurance, how much or what percent of their pay um, is that. And you can note here that, or see here that it's employer benefits. And again, you get to pick which fund and which expense track those. If I go to deductions, you can see this is the employee deductions. And I can again pick what they actually have, again, dollar amount or percentage. So we'll just say that's 2%. And you can see that that calculates the amount right away. I can go to their taxes setup. And so here, it should pull in all of your defaults. So I'm located in Minnesota, so I've got the Minnesota state taxes and then the federal. If you are someplace that has local or county taxes or something like that, it should pull those in based on what state you have in your setup. Otherwise, it's also super easy to add that. Again, tax types, this is where we're adding them. Add a tax type, and you can see there's all kinds of different things. And these are going to automatically calculate because we are linked with taxtables.org. These are going to automatically calculate based on the calculations from taxtables.org. There is the ability to go in and do some manual calculations, so percentages and things like that. Um, if there's different exemptions. So there's the ability to go in and do some of those things manually if you don't want the regular calculations, or even if you have the regular calculation and you just know that they have an additional like $25 they're withholding per month kind of thing, you can go in and add that. Um, and then that should calculate here for you. And so it even shows you here what their adjusted gross is going to be, what those taxes are going to be, gives you a great amount of information here um, to make sure that your setup is accurate. Once you get the setup done, then you come to the Pay Employees screen and you can go ahead and add a new batch. So this is similar to our donations module if you've ever used that. Add the new batch. So I can put in whichever date I want. So I know this says December 25th, but I could go ahead and say, oh, well, this is actually my November 30th payroll. And again, what pay date? So we'll say that's 11/1/23 to 11/30/23 is my pay period, and the pay date again is 11/30/23. So I've got that batch in there. Now I want to add employees. So everybody's already automatically added. But since I don't have information for the majority of my employees, I'm just going to unmark them all and only have Mr. Allenson, who I do have information for, put here. And I can type in what his actual hours were. And I can either post just one check at a time if I had multiple employees, or I can post the entire batch. When I post it, it's going to ask me, what check are you starting at? Or you can put an EFT. I'm going to go ahead and just say, yeah, this is fine. Go ahead and post to accounting. And just like that, we've got an accounting entry that it created for me with all of the information into it. So see, it's a really complicated journal entry. Thank goodness we don't have to do it. The system's going to do it for us. Um, and then if there are any errors, it's super easy to unpost that transaction. I can void it if maybe they lost that check, or if I realize, nope, I just made a mistake, I can delete it, go back in, update the information, and repost it. And of course, there's logs to track all of that, as well as anything that you do in the accounting module. Um, and then there's some nice reports that you can get for that. You have the ability to go in and create checks to pay, like to FICA and whatnot, to be able to, based off of what you've put into this batches. So if I know, like let me print Jonathan's report here. So if I look at Jonathan's report and it tells me, okay, well, we had this much withheld for these taxes, then when I go to pay the tax to like the federal, it'll calculate those for me and it'll say this is your check that you're paying to the federal. So yeah, it does a lot of neat things. Um, one of the questions that was just asked, which is a great question, I was actually going to get to that, so you're a step ahead of me. Is that we currently do not have direct deposit in the system, but we have created this new payroll module so that it is something that we can do. So in our first release, we don't have it available, but it will be available down the road. So that is kind of our next steps with our payroll module as well as e-filing. So right now within the system, all you're really doing is entering in the payroll and calculating those taxes, and you can print the pay stubs for the people and everything like that. Um, but and the paychecks, but you cannot do direct deposit yet, and you cannot do e-filing yet. Those things are both coming. That's actually one of the main reasons why we redid the payroll is so that we can get those capabilities um, for everybody. So this is kind of the first step before we've implemented those next steps. But this is basically what we have now in the system, but much improved and much smoother, more user friendly to be able to set things up. So that's our first release, and that's going to be coming out next month. Um, and we do currently have the other thing I should mention, we do currently have a um, partner. So if you do utilize this payroll, like if you want to use it right away in January, and you can, and we do currently have a partner called Yearly who does e-filing. So we have an export that works directly with Yearly so that you can um, import our export into the system. So plans and pricing. There we go. So you can see that it's a free subscription, free annual subscription, and that says plus filing fees. I don't know what those are. That's a yearly question. But we do have the report that works directly with their system for e-filing. So there is a solution there for you. But the direct deposit, as of right now, we don't have that. But again, that's coming. The other thing I wanted to mention with the payroll is that I'm going to unpost this just so you can see, delete it, is that it's also really nice because if you decided to switch, let's say mid-year, so let's say you're using um, some other accounting program to do your payroll, and then in June you want to switch over to Icon, you can come in here and you can enter in batches. So let's say this batch was, again, it was November 30th, but I started as of December. So I can put this in here and I can say I want to make this a historical batch. So I'm going to post it so that it shows up on like my W-2 reports and my filing reports and things like that. But because I'm making it historical, it is not going to be in my accounting system. There is no accounting batch for it because it's something that has already happened in the past and it happened um, in my accounting already. So it's already factored into what my current balances are at. But I can come in here and I can put in those historical, and you can see it says historical right here. I can put in those historical batches so that I can get my correct current reports. So that's a new feature with this new module that we did not have before. But anyway, that's our little sneak peek. You guys get the first look. Nobody else has seen it yet. Um, are there any other questions about any part of the accounting that I have not yet answered? As always, you can call us with any questions that you have or email us. And for anybody who may be watching this on a replay or something, there is down in the bottom right hand corner is all of our support and training information. There's a phone number, email address. We've got our hours posted. And don't forget for holiday hours and special things like that, those should be in the announcements here. But there's also a button here to schedule a training webinar. So go ahead and sign up if you want to walk through any of these steps one-on-one with any of our representatives, or feel free to give us a call or send us an email with any questions. I will be sending out an email to everybody with the recording for this video and again, the links for the previous uh, videos. And that concludes our entire webinar series. So thanks for hanging out with me, everybody, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.